Up the play!
G'day guys, Nate here, coming at you with the Round 7 preview of Collingwood v Essendon, Friday afternoon at the MCG. But more importantly, this is the ANZAC Day clash, the 30th ANZAC Day clash between Collingwood and Essendon. I am recording this on a Tuesday night, so a few days removed from our win over Brisbane Thursday night, as well as Round 6 finally being in the books for the long Easter weekend. Collingwood on top of the AFL ladder. I've put the feet up in the last few days and just enjoyed the long Easter weekend break. I'm back at it with a preview of Collingwood v Essendon. Going to discuss ANZAC Day as a whole, as well as previewing this game. Again, we are talking about ANZAC Day here. Very important day on the calendar. Going to be discussing the game in depth, but also discussing the day in depth as well. So again, this is the 30th ANZAC Day clash between Collingwood and Essendon. Collingwood leads the head-to-head overall 17-10, as well as 2 draws. I am talking, of course, exclusively the ANZAC Day clash, not the entire history of Collingwood v Essendon. Last year it was a draw, Zach Merritt being the ANZAC Day medalist and could be a smoky for back-to-back ANZAC Day medals here. Going to talk more about this game a little bit later on, but before I do, I want to talk about ANZAC Day as a whole. We are over 100 years removed from World War One, and we are approaching 100 years of this being a proper recognised day of remembrance. The importance and meaning of this day should not be ignored, so I am going to discuss the history of this day. So in 1915, the Australian and New Zealand soldiers, more commonly known as the ANZACs, the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, they formed part of the expedition that set out to capture the Gallipoli Peninsula in order to open the Dardanelles to the Allied navies. The ultimate goal here was to capture Constantinople, more commonly known as Istanbul today. That was the capital of the Ottoman Empire at the time, an ally of Germany. The Australian and New Zealand forces, they landed on Gallipoli April 25th. They met fierce resistance from the Ottoman Empire or the Turkish defenders. The campaign dragged out for 8 months. At the end of 1915, the Allied forces were evacuated from the peninsula. More than 8,000 Australian soldiers had died in this campaign. This had a profound impact on Australians at home at the time, and the 25th of April soon became the day in which Australians would be remembered for the sacrifices of those who died in the war. And although this campaign in Gallipoli failed in its military objective, the actions of the Australian and New Zealand forces, more commonly known again as the ANZACs, what became known at the time as the ANZAC Legend, became an important part of the identity of both nations. So in 1916, the first ANZAC Day commemorations were held again on the 25th of April. This day was marked by a wide variety of ceremonies and services across Australia. Marches were held all over Australia, and for the remaining years of World War One, ANZAC Day, or April 25th, was used as an occasion for patriotic rallies and also recruiting campaigns. And during the 1920s, ANZAC Day became more of an established national day of commemoration, as over 60,000 Australians had died during the First World War. In 1927, every state observed some form of public holiday for ANZAC Day, April 25th. And by the mid 1930s, all rituals we now associate with this day, dawn vigils, marches, memorial services, reunions, were firmly established as part of the ANZAC Day culture. In 1927, every state observed some form of public holiday for ANZAC Day, April 25th. And by the mid 1930s, all rituals we now associate with this day, dawn vigils, marches, memorial services, reunions, were firmly established as part of the ANZAC Day culture. And just as I start to relate ANZAC Day towards footy, from the 1960s up until 1995, there had been games played on ANZAC Day with different clubs involved. The idea of a proper ANZAC Day game, though, had been in the works for a majority of that time, between 1960 and 1994. And now, as of 2025, we get to see Collingwood v Essendon on ANZAC Day for the 30th time. We get to see Melbourne v Richmond April 24th. We sometimes get another game as well for ANZAC Day interstate. Again, it's a day of national remembrance, a day to be grateful as an Australian, grateful to be alive, grateful to be able to watch Collingwood v Essendon on ANZAC Day. Just also being grateful for this ANZAC Day clash being such a big occasion on Australian calendars. So just on this year's ANZAC Day game between Collingwood and Essendon, if I had to summarise this game in 3 words, it would be expect the unexpected. The reason I say expect the unexpected is that with these teams like Collingwood, Essendon, and also teams like Carlton and Richmond, again, the big 4 clubs, it's a square of rich history between us and battles between each other throughout history. You expect the unexpected when it comes to these sort of matchups. Facing Essendon, particularly on ANZAC Day, you can almost throw the form guide out the window here, as again, anything can happen in this sort of game. Collingwood currently on top of the AFL ladder, 5-game win streak up against Essendon. They're pushing for a top 8 spot. 3-game win streak. They've got a game in hand as well. You'd think, based on current form, that Collingwood's got a straightforward victory here lined up. But again, expect the unexpected. Anything can happen in this sort of game, particularly Anzac Day. We've looked very clinical in recent weeks. Essendon, however, they had the fight to beat Port Adelaide. They had a solid win, however, over Melbourne in Gather Round, but they had to scrape by West Coast by 2 points. They had to come back from 25 points down halfway through the third quarter. Very valiant effort by West Coast, improved performance by West Coast, mind you. But good teams find a way to win those ugly contests. Good teams find a way to win. Essendon did just that. Again, they're on a 3-game win streak. 15 other teams can't say that in the competition right now. They are ranked first, Essendon, for total disposals on, and this is on average. They do have the game in hand, mind you. They are fourth overall for disposal efficiency. They are eighth for tackles. They're also bottom four for tackles inside 50. They like to turn the chicken up, particularly in the middle parts of the ground, particularly the midfielders. But it's up forward and down back where Collingwood can expose them. Essendon do have the most recent victory over us, and also last year's ANZAC Day being a draw. That was where Essendon kicked the first 4 goals of the game within the first 5 minutes, but we weren't ready. Fucking blindsided by that. Kyle Langford missing a set shot with 90 seconds left. Jamie Elliott dropping a diving mark with seconds to go, which could have given us a late win. We also had set shots in that final quarter that cost us as well. We have improved our accuracy in front of goal the past 2 weeks. That's why we've been so dominant as well. Scoreboard reward for that. But we're still 16th overall for scoring accuracy. It has improved from 35% to 40%. Still got a bit of work to get that up to 50%. Get it up to 50%. We're winning majority of our games. If we just kick straight, execute, convert, take our chances, particularly in a game that's going to be wet weather footy, realistically, we should be fine and we should be able to play our game and be able to control the outcome. Now, for the first time since opening round, I am going to include the keys to victory here because I do think we've got areas of the game that can expose Essendon, and again, in order to control the outcome of this game. The first key to victory, and this is an obvious one, is the ruck battle. Nick Bryan out for the season with an ACL injury. Sam Draper out for the season with an Achilles rupture. Talk about a double whammy for Essendon. They've got no Tom Edwards as well, their supplementary pickup a few weeks or a few months ago. So they're going to have their hands full in the mid-season draft, but more importantly, they're going to have their hands full on Anzac Day, particularly against Darcy Cameron and possibly against Mason Cox as well. Todd Goldstein, the likely replacement for Draper, as well as Nick Bryan. This would be such a game for Todd Goldstein to wind back the clock and be an integral part in upsetting Collingwood here. I can see the vision. I've seen Paddy Ryder step up in 2009 when David Hill went down injured. I can damn sure see Todd Goldstein more than holding his own here against Darcy Cameron, turning back the clock, having not a legacy game, but being the sole or being one of the reasons, if not the sole reason as well, that Essendon can get an upset win over Collingwood here. Second key to victory is our forward 50 pressure. Essendon rank 13th for points for and points against. They do rank 15th for rebound 50s and also 15th for intercepts as well. So from those metrics, we should be able to either keep it inside forward 50 or zone up defensively and make it a difficult mission for Essendon to get it out of defensive 50 and also score from turnovers. Where Essendon can turn the pressure up in the middle, we can do just as much, if not better, up forward. And even if Essendon do get it out of defensive 50 and just being controlled down back, I still trust our players to set up defensively with a zone. They can make life difficult for Essendon to push forward cleanly. The third key to victory, and this is where we can expose Essendon, but this is also where Essendon can expose us, is our defensive setup. Essendon they've had a smallish forward line, particularly against West Coast. Peter Wright, first game back this season, kicked a casual 6 goals. Kyle Langford is expected to return for this game. He's been typically annoying against us and how well he's been playing in recent years. And Nate Caddy and Isaac Kako, they are young, they are inexperienced, but regardless of not hitting the scoreboard or impacting the stat sheet, I am expecting those two to have a standout game and also kick multiple goals. I wouldn't be surprised, again, this is the sort of game that someone like a Nate Caddy or an Isaac Kako announce themselves to the AFL world and just fucking run rings around us down back. And the fourth key to victory, I think, is going to be between Nick Dacos and Zach Merritt, the midfield battle here. I don't think Zach Merritt and Nick Dacos are going to line up against each other directly. I'm not sure how Essendon's going to go about nullifying Nick Dacos, whether it's another proper hard tag or they put a midfielder on Nick Dacos to be a sponge to also get 30 disposals. No Jai Caldwell, likely no Darcy Parish. Dylan Shield has stood up in recent weeks in the midfield. Sam Durham is due for a big game as well, particularly on a big stage like this. But one thing I do respect about Brad Scott as a coach, he does his homework on the opposition he faces. I am fully expecting a different Essendon outfit in recent weeks to what we've seen so far this season. Again, I expect the unexpected. Whatever stats or key metrics that they lack in Essendon and what we dominate in, I expect it to shift in this sort of game. I expect Essendon to, again, turn up the chicken It's up to us to not only be prepared for this game, but also take them seriously. Again, just got to execute well as we've been doing in recent weeks. We should be able to control the outcome. Again, it's a sort of matchup that we should be winning. Just on Essendon selection talk, speculation. Again, I think Todd Goldstein's going to come in for Sam Draper, an obvious one. However, I don't have much speculation elsewhere. Kyle Langford also going to come in. Not sure who comes out for Kyle Langford. They did win the VFL by 16 points, and they had a few standout players as well. Elijah Sadis, Laverde, he's also suspended. He had a good game for VFL, but I'll see him out. Lewis Hayes down back, but I don't think Brad Scott's game enough to have Lewis Hayes debut on ANZAC Day like this. But for Collingwood selection talk and speculation, again, I'm recording this on a Tuesday night, so if there's been any player announcements or updates, I do apologise if it's not being included here. Dan Houston, he's going to be back. That's a given. So Dan Houston will be in for Ed Allen. I don't know what they're going to do with Membry and Cox. They could possibly do Membry in for Will Hoskin-Elliott, but again, it's going to be a wet weather game. I expect Will Hoskin-Elliott to be the sub in this game, and it's going to be between Membry and Cox on who comes in and comes out. Cox has the height. He'll assist as a second ruck as well, could win the game from that sort of spot. Two behinds against Brisbane. If it's 2 goals, I don't think this would be a debate. Maybe Cox stays in for Membry. But I do like Membry as the lead up forward. His efforts against Sydney and Gather Round when the ball was on the ground, loved his efforts. He only kicked a goal and had a handful of disposals, but it was enough for me to remain in the side. And I do want to flag about what Craig McRae has said earlier this year in regards to Jordan Ngoe. He has said at times that Jordan Ngoe will be rested, and he did say he wouldn't be surprised if he's rested in the coming weeks. I see the future fixture. I see a 5-day break between the Geelong game next week and also the Fremantle game in 2 weeks' time. That's also being interstate. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Goey is rested and Lockie Schultz comes back in. Lockie Schultz has been ruled out for the ANZAC Day game. He'll be 50-50 for Geelong, but he should be back properly for the Freo game in 2 weeks. Looking forward to that one. And Craig McRae also harped on in pre-season that in 2024, we had players that were fit to play. They weren't fit to perform. And that does strike me right there because he's not going to deviate from the long-term vision this season. He's happy to rest a few players, but I'm also expecting these players to be prepared for that sort of talk or that sort of news. So for selection talk this week, Dan Houston in for Ed Allen. Membry and Cox, 50-50 right there. We don't want to disrespect Todd Goldstein in the ruck for this game, but we also want to make Essendon defenders feel uncomfortable. Will Hoskin-Elliott, he's been solid in his 2 games so far at AFL level. Ned Long, he's made a statement so far. So for Will Hoskin-Elliott, he's either going to be the sub for this game or he's going to be an emergency. Here's some random stats for the ANZAC Day games. Again, head-to-head, Collingwood 17, Essendon 10, 2 draws. Since the 2009 game, there have been 14 ANZAC Day games. Only 2 times has a lower-ranked team won those games, both times being Collingwood. That was in 2012 and 2023. 2023, we were 3rd, Essendon were 2nd, and that was just because of percentage. So 2012 is the only one that's been considered an upset, and that's when we were outside the 8. Essendon, I think, were on top at the time. Chris Tarrant, he's the only ANZAC Day medalist to have won the honour in a losing match. That was 2001. Essendon's last ANZAC Day wins, 2005, 2009, 2013, 2017, and 2021. There's a bit of a pattern there at the moment. Again, 17-10 head-to-head, 2 draws. Again, Essendon, they won the most recent game as well over us last year. I don't think this is going to be a straightforward game for us. This is going to be a little bit difficult, more trying for us. I am fully expecting Essendon to not only turn up for this game, they're not going to force us to their level. They're going to rise up to our level. Any deficiencies in the stats or the key metrics in this game, they're going to be rectified from either team. Certain players are going to play out their skin for this. And I think the Essendon edge is going to be on full display here. Again, expect the unexpected. But that will be all for this ANZAC Day game preview of Collingwood v Essendon, as well as discussing ANZAC Day as a whole. Just a few notes before I wrap up this video. During the weekend, the VFLW side won their season opener by 28 points over Casey Demons. The Pies VFL team, they lost by a point to Brisbane after the siren. Where have I heard that before? My next video is going to be a review of this game. I'm not sure when it's going to be uploaded. It might be uploaded Friday night. It might be uploaded Saturday morning. Again, I'm expecting the unexpected here. I'm preparing for an Essendon fight here. Just as well for the weekend, the VFL and VFLW, Pies are taking on Essendon Saturday, April 26th, both games in Port Melbourne. Technically a late doubleheader. Pies VFLW, they're up before noon. The VFL side, they're playing on the Saturday night. So there's going to be a bit of a gap between both games here. A day of camping at Port Melbourne's on the agenda for me. I'll wrap the video up here. Please be well, stay safe, make Pies out.